what people say is going to happen. But thank you very much, Minister. The Minister and I come from way many years ago. We were at school together. It's wonderful to see that people who were at school together in the 60s are still able-bodied and are still able to do a number of things to serve the nation. So thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be in your presence, and it is also good to be here again this year. I had a great time last year when I graced this occasion. The Basic Education Lekgotla is one of the most important events on our national calendar. It is here that officials involved in education, educators, teachers, teacher unions that is, policymakers, the private sector, and civil society can come together and also get the involvement of internationally based people who are well-versed in education, like from UNESCO, to chart the course for basic education for the next 12 months and way beyond. Basic education is the foundation of any nation's development, as we all know. It is also the foundation of progress and prosperity that we would want to see in any nation. The aspiration laid out in our Constitution to establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and human rights cannot be achieved without prioritizing education. And if you look at our budget allocation, education is the one sector that gets the highest allocation. Improving the quality of education, or rather the quality of life of all citizens, and freeing the potential and unlocking and unleashing the potential of each person cannot be realized without education at the center of our efforts. And this is a given. You do know, and you can see immediately, once a person who's gone through the education system presents themselves, and a person who has not gone through the education system, it's like chalk and cheese. It therefore tells us the centrality of education in our life cycle as human beings. If one can liken our nation to a sturdy tree that is strong enough to weather the worst conditions, basic education forms the roots that nourish the tree and enable it to grow and to thrive. The oldest tree in the world is recorded as being 5,071 years. It is called the Great Basin Bristlecone Pine. And it was named the oldest tree in 2012, beating the previous record by over 200 years. And this tree was scored by a certain gentleman called Schulman in the late 50s, but he did not have a chance to date his sample before he passed away in 1958. Now, I have a keen interest in trees, and I always try to get those that get to look at trees with me, and try to get people to know the names of trees and to also estimate their age. And I often tell people that as you walk around our environment, the landscapes of our country, we need to take a keen interest on what adorns our beautiful country. It's plants, it's trees, it's the grass, and the plants that we plant for our food and all that. But trees are most important. And in a way, they a representation of ourselves as people. And that is why we say education, the roots of a tree are like education. The stronger and the healthier the roots are, the stronger and healthier is the tree. That is why, even though we have many challenges, and challenges we have by the truckload, we will continue to celebrate achievements in basic education. And we do have great achievements to celebrate. Last year we recorded 80.1% matric pass rate. That was a phenomenal achievement against many odds. This was a 4% improvement on the year before, despite the impact of COVID, where we had to lock down the country and keep our young people at home, where we closed schools, where there was a learning disruption, where there was curriculum trimming and reorganization, where there were rotational timetables and numerous hurdles. Notwithstanding all that, our learners more than excelled, and we should give those learners a good round of applause for their great achievement. Now, this year's results were particularly pleasing to me in that the performance of learners from poorer schools show the deepening impact of education spending and the social wage more broadly. When you look at the performance all round, the one that I zeroed into, as I told the minister when she presented the results to me, I said to her when I observed the rising performance in poorer schools, I said, this is like touching the Holy Grail. Since Bantu education, which really did one of the most terrible damage to the education of our nation, as we've been improving, particularly in poorer schools, and the results are becoming more and more positive and almost becoming equal with the more higher, better endowed schools. I said, this is the silent revolution that we've always sought to want to achieve. And I dub it touching the Holy Grail, because it is precisely that we must applaud. That children from poor schools in the rural areas, in the townships, are able to sit for exams and achieve equal type of performance with children from independent schools as well as children from more affluent areas in our country. That, to me, is the revolution that we have always sought to see. And it is happening under our noses. And I have to congratulate and thank all those who contributed towards this outcome. We congratulate you, Minister Motshekga, and your deputy, Dr. Mhaule. And I also congratulate our MECs and their teams, because they played no less a role in making sure that this is the achievement that they have given to the country. Of course, we have to thank our parents and caregivers, school administrators and support staff, school governing bodies and teaching assistants who we deployed during COVID to go to many schools as part of the presidential employment stimulus, which we put in place during COVID. Of course, the biggest heroes are our educators. Because of their dedication to their profession, our learners got the support they needed to sit these exams and to do well. So great applause to our educators. Let's give them that round of applause. Now, I speak here in terms of the extra hours they spent tutoring the young people, the personal time taken to help to redraft and amend timetables, as well as the curricula, the time spent being part of matric camps and many other initiatives. I know one province which has really come to excel. When it is exam time, they take the young people out to camps. And I've heard that they sleep on the floor, and their main preoccupation is just preparing themselves for the exams. And I know that many other schools have started emulating this, but it is educators who have demonstrated real commitment to making sure that our young people excel well. Many of our educators have their own families and children in school, and yet they provide an extended family to their learners. They take them as their own. The improved matric results must encourage us as stakeholders in basic education to redouble our effort to address the extremely serious problem of learner dropout. Minister, as she was presenting the results, did remark about this, and we have seen an improvement, but she's alive to the concern I've been raising over years. But last year we saw a great improvement, but there is still a cohort of young people who, having entered the education system 12 years ago, and then when it comes to the 12th year, a number of them are absent when it comes to writing the final exam after 12 years. Every year, thousands of high school learners leave before sitting for their matric exams. And I've often said, as educators, we must be like the hen, the chicken hen. Once it has chicks, it will look for the missing chick all the time to put it under its feathers. That is precisely what we should be doing, and know which one is missing and why it is missing. And in many respects, the problem of learner dropout makes the theme of this year's Lekgotla even more relevant. The theme, which focuses on equipping learners with knowledge and skills for a changing world, raises the important issue of whether all learners who enter the basic education system are able to follow the educational paths that best suit them and their aspirations and their dreams and their hopes. If we can provide learners with more choices and better guidance, we should be able to reduce the proportion of learners that drop out. But once we give them more choices, that is when we will, as educators, as parents, as the role players who are given the responsibility to guide these young people, we will know and we will see the signs of these dropout rates, and we will be able to follow through and find out why they are dropping out. The three-stream model is critical if we are to adapt and thrive as a country in the new world of work. The skills that our country needs, the jobs that can grow our economy, and importantly, the avenues for things like entrepreneurship that are so sorely needed, can best be achieved by increasing learner access to technical and vocational subjects. I got to meet a young lady, a young girl, who, Minister, did not achieve the bachelor pass rate, and she was in tears for hours and hours. And I said to her, we have 4 opportunities to make progress from the 12th year of schooling. You can pass with a bachelor's grade, you can pass with a diploma, you can get a certificate, and you can get an endorsement. And I said, you have a diploma pass rate. You should see that as a great opportunity that opens a new pathway for you to go and learn something in a much more direct way, which can make a greater contribution to the economy. And that is not like a fall, it's not even a stumble. It is opening a new pathway, and a great pathway for that matter. And it was only when I had explained that she started to brighten up. Because it is this type of pathways that we must be able to inculcate in the thinking of young people. I'm pleased to hear about the progress that we are making in institutionalizing the 3-stream model. I understand that various technical vocational specializations have already been introduced in more than 550 schools, and a growing number of schools are piloting the subjects in the technical occupational stream. And I must say that when Minister Motshekga informed me about this a couple of years ago, it really got me excited, because I started having a sense that we are now moving to another higher level. And as I've gone around to technical colleges, TVET colleges, and have met these young people who are dabbling in all manner of more sort of functional and technical callings, I found them inspired, focused, and dreaming of great things that will come in the future. And they are the ones who immediately tell me that when I finish my course here, I already have a job. I am going to sign up with this company or that company. And they feel so confident and say, now I have a great opportunity not to be unemployed. So this is precisely that we must be stressing. These subjects that include, and I've met a number of them, agriculture, marine, and nautical science, electrical, civil, and mechanical technologies, amongst others, are the types of subjects that we now want to see spreading in many, many of our schools. These are the vocations our economy sorely needs. They are the kind of vocations that we need to promote and develop if we are able to address the scourge of unemployment in our country. The high numbers of unemployed youth is something no country can afford, but it is even much worse if they are also not in education or training. Now that training must start at school, and it is that training that will keep young people focused, because they will know that if they have trained in some of these subjects, they are not easily going to join the ranks of the unemployed, because the economy is hungry for people who are skilled in those disciplines. Inclusive growth and shared prosperity can only really be achieved when more people are working. A productive workforce cannot be achieved if we do not remake ourselves as a nation that is committed to lifelong learning in various ways. And I want us to underline lifelong learning, because it is this lifelong learning opportunity that we must encourage people to embark upon, to go and learn even beyond what we have learned at school, university, about a number of other disciplines. It could even be learning about trees, how you name trees and how you recognize trees. It could be learning about a new skill, even if you are not necessarily going to participate actively in it. If the economy is not creating enough jobs at scale to support the growing numbers of unemployed, we have to think creatively and innovatively about how we are going to address this. We have to look beyond issues of labor absorption alone and into what are the best ways to open up new pathways for employment and self-employment. And one of the reasons that I get excited with the new subjects that are being taught in schools, much as it's still 550 and I want more and more schools to reach out to this, is that once people get into those technical education subjects, it opens up the pores of their thinking. They become much more creative. They are then able to come up with new ideas, new products, because they are working face to face with concepts that could create products that could be needed in the economy. They come up with new processes. And it is this that fuels economies of other countries. I look at China, I see how creative they are. They are able to make nearly everything. If you go anywhere to buy something, you look at the back, you'll find it is made in China. Why is that the case? They have focused on more technical education, technical training, and that in itself just opens up platforms for people to know how things work, how products are put together, how processes that lead to those types of products really can be brought to life. And then that opens up creativity and innovativeness. That is why I do believe that moving in this direction for us and the adoption of the three-stream model is so important. Because this starts with developing skills for a modern and dynamic workforce, but it begins with basic education. It cannot be emphasized enough that the greater the scope for basic education streams, the better our learners' prospects are for securing employment, as I was saying, and for self-employment after schools, because that person becomes much more of a thinker, much more of a dreamer, much more of a creator, an inventor, and a person who thinks outside the box. By way of example, we will be aware of the national effort to transition our economy along a low-carbon, climate change resilient pathway, and our move towards cleaner sources of energy. Powering a clean energy revolution and pursuing sustainable development requires well-trained people in the various disciplines. It requires artisans, mechanics, green equipment manufacturers and operators, waste entrepreneurs, technicians, sustainable farming practitioners, and a host of others, which this foundation that is laid by basic education, which now begins to advance to more technical subjects, becomes the real platform that we should use. Never has the imperative been greater for us to forge ahead with curricula that are responsive to the changing needs of our economy and society. Beyond reflecting on the issues facing the basic education sector, our expectations are that the collective expertise at this Lekgotla will help us consolidate what has been achieved so far to strengthen basic education outcomes into the future. And I firmly believe that if there ever was a time when we have a great opportunity to further strengthen education, basic education, this is the time. We've built a really robust system of basic education. And I know a number of people are always tempted to rubbish the system that we've put in place, that we've been building brick by brick and strengthening over time. And this system, which is now producing the pass rate that we now see, and which is now poised to start moving into a number of other areas that are going to meaningfully contribute to the growth of our economy, is a system that we should strengthen more. And your Lekgotla here today is about that. It's about you making contributions that will further strengthen the system. The learning losses from the COVID-19 pandemic period will take some time to recoup. We have to forge ahead with the comprehensive curriculum recovery plan. We need to pay particular attention to the negative impact, yes, of the pandemic on early learning because of the serious consequences for learners later. When learners have difficulty learning because they struggle to read and are not confident with basic numeracy, they are more likely to repeat classes. This slows their progress through the grades, places greater burdens on teachers, and consumes resources which could have been directed to quality improvement. We have to keep looking at concrete mechanisms to strengthen the use of technology to support curriculum delivery, particularly to learners from disadvantaged communities. Now, when it comes to technology, other economies around the world have placed a great deal of stock and confidence in technology, and it is technology that they have put up front there to drive their economic growth. And we already see how some of their gigantic companies are straddling the globe and even becoming a threat to your northern economy countries. And when it comes to technology, in recent times, I found that young people become so adept with technology. They are wizards and they are geniuses. And if anything, we are the ones who hold them back. We hold them back, but their minds and capabilities are far ahead. And this is what we need to focus on, to underpin our education system with technology offerings. Care and support for teacher and learning must be institutionalized as a tool to improve learner outcomes and retention rates. That mentoring process that we need to give, and also comes down to the role-playing role that we play so that young people can see us as role players. It must mitigate against learner dropouts and contribute to the nation's overall well-being by investing in young people's emotional stability. We know that education involves more than the skills needed to work. It is about developing the capabilities needed to participate in a democratic society. Our schools must become places that are free of corporal punishment or even the need for it. There must also be places where there is no sexual abuse, where there is no gender-based violence, where there is no racism whatsoever, and where substance abuse and all the other ills are completely absent in our schools. Our schools, like our country, must be alert to prevent a resurgence of COVID-19. As educators and stakeholders, we must continue to encourage the health of our young people at all times. Just as education fights inequality and poverty, improves a nation's health outcomes, and contributes to economic growth, investment, and quality education, extends beyond learning itself. We are working hard to ensure that learners are able to receive education in dignified conditions that support their health and well-being. Through the Sanitation Appropriate for Education program, known as SAFE, we have so far been able to construct some 50,000 sanitation facilities at more than 2,000 schools. A further 15,000 appropriate toilets were constructed at 1,000 schools as part of the Accelerated Schools Infrastructure Delivery Initiative, ACIDI. Now, the Department of Basic Education assures me that all remaining safe sanitation projects at approximately 1,000 schools are scheduled for completion in the next financial year. So we will be able to restore dignity not only of teachers, but of learners in the schools that are still remaining. This is something that I've wanted to see being done for years. I now want it to be completed because it is about restoration of dignity. We know that conditions of learning are seriously constrained in many of our schools by high learner dropouts, or ratios rather, amongst others. The burden of expectation on our educators to teach, to do administration, and to meet the needs of their learners is quite stressful. The introduction of learning assistants into our classrooms as part of the presidential employment stimulus has been a blessing for many educators and schools, and I'm glad that it has been so well supported and so well received wherever I have gone. This is one program that has been so well commended and praised by both parents, teachers, and even communities, and even young people themselves. The third cohort of participants will be starting early this year and will be providing this much needed support to our educators. This Lekgotla has a full and busy agenda, so let us get to work. We have a lot to do and to achieve, and building resilience and promoting success in basic education is a firm foundation for economic growth, social progress, and tackling inequality. And as you do all this, I want us to inculcate in our heads that as a developmental state, developing the learning capabilities of our young people must become our primary focus. And we must therefore come up with systems, with initiatives that are going to advance our developmental and transformational agenda. I look forward to today's deliberations and to the outcomes of the Lekgotla. I know that the Minister will be able to share with me the outcomes of what you will have discussed. And with that, I'd like to thank you. I'm sorry I was a bit expansive because your sector really, really excites me. Because as Minister was introducing me, she failed to say that I was meant to be a teacher in 1976. 1976, after being thrown out of the University of the North, I wandered around. I was thrown out in 1974, went into detention for quite a long time, and when I came out, they wouldn't take me back. So I was kind of stranded, and then landed a job with Meadowlands High School in 1976. I was going to be a part-time teacher. And as I drove on the 16th of June in 1976 to start my part-time teaching career. As I drove to the school, the students were marching out, and that was the beginning of the uprising. So you can call me an amper teacher. I almost became one of you, but it was all my career, which would have been a flying career, I'm sure, as a teacher, was interrupted by young people on June 16th, 1976. So feel sorry for me, but I could have been one of you. Thank you very much. Thank you.